What's up everyone, welcome to the Akuma Fund. Today we'll be discussing Apple. We're going to be discussing Apple's valuation currently. We're going to be discussing my thoughts on the long-term trajectory. We're going to be covering whether obviously I own Apple stock, what I'm planning to do at the current prices. We'll be discussing Apple as a company, their business model. We're going to be discussing the current drama, international expansion, what are they doing overseas, and then we're going to conclude, and I'm going to tell you guys what I'm personally doing with Apple right now. There's the pre-2012 Apple and the post-2012 Apple. Pre-2012 Apple was a growth stock. It was a straight up a growth stock. Steve Jobs dies around 2012, I believe, also, and I believe Tim Cook comes in and starts introducing a dividend. And that is around when I believe the switch from a growth company to a blue chip company starts to happen. Yeah, they implemented their dividend, and their dividend has stayed about at a 25% payout ratio ever since, so in 2012. After 2012, even though I'm saying that it's a blue chip stock, including some up and down years, it's been staying at consistent double-digit growth every single year. I'm talking about profit here, 20% growth on profits. Sales and services and other products in the recent quarter and the recent year in 2018, people like to say, oh, iPhone unit sales are down, but since they're able to raise the average selling price, but this is, if you're doing any research on Apple or hearing anybody's video, they're going to tell you this, but even if the unit sales are down, they're actually making more money from their iPhones than ever before, and they've been having stagnant growth in iPad and Mac, which is reasonable because first of all, Mac has been stagnant for a long time, and iPad, the upgrade cycles on iPads are really low. But I'm pretty excited about that new iPad Pro. It looks pretty sick. My family just got a bunch of iPads. I will be talking more about that whenever I talk about their company as what it actually does for consumers. Personally, for me, unit sales don't matter. If I can sell one thing that I made for $20,000 for $5 million. Does it really matter if I only sold one of them to me? No, because I just made $4,980,000 in profit, right? So if Apple was able to sell, I don't care about the units. I don't care about the units because let's be real now. People using those iPhones, people overwhelmingly have iPhones, at least in my family, right? Whether they buy the new iPhone 10, the 10R, the 10X, whatever, doesn't matter because they're still locked into the Apple ecosystem. Let me give an example. My family just bought, I think, 2 new iPads. So once you're locked into the Apple ecosystem, you're going to buy an iPad, you're going to buy a Mac, you're going to buy the new Apple Pencil, you're going to buy accessories, you're going to buy the dongles, you're going to buy AirPods, you're going to buy the HomePods, you're going to use Apple Music, you're going to use the App Store. App Store is the most profitable app store compared to Android. People on iPhone spend way more money than they do on Androids. So for me personally, I don't really care about the unit sales when it comes to iPhones, or even any of their products really, as long as the profits maintain acceptable levels of growth, and even if they're stagnant, if the people using those phones are buying more stuff on their phones, hey, it doesn't matter because ultimately, Apple's gross margin is 38.5%, so they're doing something right. I don't know what the breakdown is for the gross margin. Maybe I could have probably looked for it better, but at a 38.3 net margin, and it always stays at like 38, 39. I bet they could even push it out even higher, but I believe a lot of that comes from services. It doesn't cost that much to, obviously, I think maybe Apple's gross margin on iPhones maybe be like 20%, maybe even more, if it's 30. But I feel like that last extra bit of just insane gross margin comes from their services, because you build it once, you don't have to do that much maintenance, and if it's profitable, it's profitable. Apple's tax rates were, I believe, before the Trump, excuse me, I shouldn't say Trump tax cuts, but we'll say Trump's tax cuts. So before Trump's tax cuts were like 25%, after now they're about 19%. So obviously, in this grand scheme of things, Trump's tax cuts have very much helped Apple. In a world where they don't get that extra 6% of retained profits, I believe maybe we would be even more skeptical of Apple's performance of late. Their balance sheet looks really nice. $365 million in assets, $365 million in assets, $258 in liabilities. So that would equal $107 million of shareholder equity. So I don't know. That's not that much, to be honest with you. But ultimately, we're not buying a business to cut it up into little pieces. We're buying Apple because not of their assets, but because of obviously the crazy profitability of their company, of our company. Excuse me, I'm a shareholder. Our company. The current valuation is a $722.68 billion market cap. And by extension, I should mention that it's also trading at a 12.79 PE. The forward PE used to be about like a 9, but now it's 11.29 because of the whole thing about the Apple China sales numbers and stuff. Obviously, recently hit a $1 trillion market cap, but I find it really interesting that Apple can put up these insane market caps with its $800, $900, $1 million market cap, and still only trade within a 20 to 10 PE ratio. I think that's really quite baffling to me personally. It just proves that this company is insanely profitable. Apple's been taking a lot of shares off the market, doing $100 billion, $200 billion share buybacks. I think they probably took off like 20% of the total shares since they started doing their share buybacks. So I think that's really freaking awesome. The dividend yield is 1.87%, and they've been growing it at 11% year-over-year change. That's something I really like. So as long as they increase their profitability as a company, they're going to keep on increasing that dividend. The dividend, it's pretty low at 1.87, but to be paid to hold Apple stock, it's fine. I think it's one of those things where I envision Apple in maybe not 30 years, because who knows, tech can change a lot in 30 years, but 10, 15, 20 years, it's one of those stocks that I feel like Apple's going to be doing very, very well. And let's just make sure I finish all the financial stuff, and so we can talk about the company and we can continue on with that. So yeah, share buybacks, lots of shares taken off the market. 2013, 336,000 shares were taken off the market. 2014, 500,000 were taken off the market. 2015, 332,000 were taken off the market. 2016, 187,000 were taken off the market. And then recently in 2018, they did $100 billion in share buybacks. And the historical PE on Apple trades in between a 12 PE and a 20 PE. And the 20 PE was the recent $1 trillion market cap. So right now you're buying at Apple on very much the lower end of, excuse me, not 10 and 12, it's actually 10 and 20. So Apple trades for the past maybe 3-4 years, it trades within about a 20 to a 10 PE ratio, with the average probably being around like a 15 PE. So one thing I would like to mention is that if you're buying Apple at a lower PE than what it usually trades at, so you're buying Apple at what I consider a bargain. So I think people can, I would consider the fair value, and this is pretty standard, the fair value of a company at like a 15 or 16 PE, or 14 depending on what kind of investor you are. So Apple really likes to follow that whole 15 PE trend, at least for the stock market, that is. But for it to be trading at like a 12.73 with forward PE, which is lower, I think you're gonna. I think I'm buying an Apple at a good price, obviously because of the growth involved, of the historical PEs involved. It's continuing to be a profitable company. It's trading like it trades at a lower PE than Coca-Cola or Pepsi or like consumer staple stocks, and it still has like 10% year-over-year growth. It's kind of interesting to me how the market, I feel, consistently undervalues Apple stock, and for what reason I don't really understand. Obviously there's lots of drama, but I think that's just because Apple's the biggest company on, well, maybe it's the second or first biggest company, depending on what day you're looking at it. But and its products, it draws a lot of haters, and in the stock market it draws a lot of haters. But if you're just concerned about buying a good company at an okay dividend yield, at a growing dividend yield, at a good valuation, for me personally, that's how I analyze it, and that's probably buying Apple. But you can't just look at a financial company and figure out whether you want to buy it or not. You have to understand what the company is about. So Apple obviously started out very, very, very early in like I don't even know about this era because I was either not born or I was like 1 or 2. 90s, I think Steve Jobs leaves, comes back, whatever, cool. I read, actually, if you want to read a book about it, check the Steve Jobs biography. It's really quite interesting. It's a very good read. Highly recommend it. I'll put a link to it in the description. One of the best books I've ever read. Definitely affected me. I read it maybe when I was maybe 14. Definitely something that I'm very happy that I read it back on early on. Steve Jobs first came out with the iPod, revamped the Mac, etc., etc. Obviously released the iPhone. Huge amounts of growth. But what makes Apple different than a lot of its competitors, mostly in the Windows market and in the Android market, is that Apple has a philosophy of wanting to vertically integrate everything, whether it's their suppliers or for their different chipsets or suppliers. I'm not even talking about like small things. I'm talking like they want to manufacture their own chips, they want to manufacture their whole device, they want to design their whole device, they don't want to have too many external chips from other people, they want to design the in-house operating system. For example, MacBooks, they run OS X, or I think it's called Mac OS now. They run iPhones run iOS, iPads run iOS. But Apple being able to control the software and the hardware and doing a very, very good job of doing the hardware and the software, they make their products a lot more efficient. And you can really, really see this with with honestly the new iPad. The new iPad, I don't know what kind of chip is in there. Is it like an A12 or something? But the new chip inside of the iPad is running on ARM, which is, I don't even want to get too nerdy about this, but it runs ARM. You can research that. To sum it up, ARM is just basically much more efficient and lower power usage, and nowadays comparable in power to a lot of Intel chips, which run on I think x86 architecture. I could be wrong. If you know about this, correct me down below and explain the concepts better in detail. So a brand new iPad Pro runs faster than most laptops. I think it's actually faster than a lot of the MacBooks and even some of the MacBook Pros. So one thing that I've been very interested in is when will Apple make the switch from running Intel processors to ARM processors? But that brings me to my next point, is Apple is not an infallible company, because this is coming from me. I mean, I love Apple products. I just bought a new computer. I'll actually show it to you guys. I got a ThinkPad. Okay, I got this one refurbished. I got it for a really good deal. And this has context, right? It's a great computer. I love it. Been doing very well for me. I was able to get it refurbished for about $1,200. Really good price. 16 gigabytes RAM. Just maxed out specs, everything, right? And what was Apple offering at the same price point? A $1,200 MacBook, baseline MacBook Air, the new one. Obviously, this was refurbished, brand new, run about the same cost, but obviously, Apple products demand a premium. Why? Like I said, because Apple vertically integrates everything, and they maintain good control over their stuff. But like I said, they aren't infallible. I ended up buying that over a new MacBook. Why? Well, because the specs on this guy are better. I was able to find it refurbished, which the discount on it was even heavier refurbished, because it's mostly a business laptop. Businesses don't like to buy refurbished products. Windows is, I find Windows to be acceptable. And even with the iPhones, we're talking about how iPhones haven't been selling that many new units. I use an iPhone 5S. I've been using this iPhone 5S for a long time, and I don't ever feel like I need to upgrade. I put a new battery in here, I'm good, right? But so there's something about Apple currently where even me, as someone who loves Apple, hasn't been buying that many new Apple products. So in my own mind as a consumer, it's kind of interesting to see that. But I'm a nerd. Okay, I am a nerd. I know what RAM is. I know what an Intel Core i7 is. I know what Turbo Boost is. I know what the differences between an SSD and an HD is. So that's me. And obviously, people like that will probably not like Apple products. Who loves Apple products, and why I will always recommend Apple products to certain people, is because of their ease of use, easy to understand, safe. You don't have to worry about, like back in the day, you had to worry about Android apps giving you viruses and stuff. You never have to worry about that with Apple apps. Ease of use, seamless. Beautiful design. Name is synonymous with luxury and luxury tech. Like I said earlier, my grandmas bought iPads. They didn't buy Samsung tablets. They didn't buy Android tablets because something about iPads just makes it so easy for them to use, so easy for them to understand, so intuitive. Okay, I mean they already have enough time with the iOS stuff. Can you imagine them trying to figure out like the latest Android? I can't imagine it for them. I wouldn't want that for them. So for your average consumer, they're just better off buying an Apple product. Enough said. They've been making a lot more money off of their other categories, so that would be like the Apple AirPods, HomePods, and all, selling chargers and upselling people chargers and such. So there's that. Apple's just a sick company, and I'm really interested. I didn't buy if Apple would have upgraded their new Macs with the ARM processors that they know they're gonna switch to, I would have bought a MacBook Pro over this ThinkPad. Nothing wrong with the ThinkPad. Just if it was running ARM, it'd be faster and more power efficient. But right now, I feel like the tech market has kind of hit a saturation where it's harder for consumers who are a little bit more have a little bit more know-how to distinguish the difference between certain products. And right now, Apple is at a point where its competitors are starting to kind of catch up. And what Apple needs to do is innovate. And that brings me to the innovation part of Apple right now. A lot of people say Apple's not innovating. I personally disagree. I think that the new iPad Pro is a great example of innovation. I think Apple's innovation is not on the product's scale, obviously, but the new chips they're coming out with are freaking amazing. The ecosystem is getting better with the introduction of AirPods and HomePods. Recently, they've been expanding the services sector by I heard that they partnered up with Samsung and was it Samsung, LG, offering Apple services on those types of the products. So Apple's starting to diversify as a company, and I like that. I like that a lot. Now I know that Apple in the background is working on some really big things, as they always are. The one that I'm interested in, and this does not factor into my investing because you shouldn't. I'm not a speculator. I feel like Apple will come out with some Apple eyeglasses, and I think those will probably be the next wave of a new type of thing like the iPhone. So you never know what Apple can do. They always change markets. People will say that since Steve Jobs died that Apple has been stagnant and not innovating. I disagree. I think they're a great company. I will continue to invest in their company, even if I haven't bought that many of their products recently. I love Apple. Always will love Apple, unless they really, obviously, do something crazy and stupid. But something about their appeal to design really touches me as a consumer. The financials of the company are just excellent. I mean, the valuation is at a 12 PE. People are just critical of Apple, and that's fine. And every single time someone's been critical of Apple, guess what? They lose. So I don't have a problem with that. Anyways, guys. Oh, speaking of which, I should tell you guys what I'm doing right now with Apple stock. Is I'm buying a crap ton of it. My average buy price right now is like a 172. I could have bought it lower if I would have waited, but I'm getting some new cash injection. I'll be dumping more money into Apple stock, lowering my average price. I would like to have my Apple stock sit around $5 grand. $5 grand worth of Apple stock. Maybe like, I don't know if that's 25 shares or maybe that's like 20 shares. Excited to see what Apple can do. Coming from an Apple fanboy who didn't buy an Apple product, you'd be surprised that I'm telling myself to go buy Apple stock. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching. Okuma out.